What is going on, everybody? My name is Michael Levan, and welcome to part 4 of the Development for Infrastructure series. In this section, we're going to be talking all about how to script like a programmer, and this pretty much means that you could maybe be scripting, writing some lines of code, stuff like that, but maybe you're not using development practices like you would with another language like Go or Python or JavaScript, TypeScript, something like that. So that's going to be what this is about. I did decide to go with PowerShell, and the reason why is because I kind of find that a lot of people that are moving from that sysadmin or infrastructure engineer to developer or wanting to learn more development practices typically know PowerShell if they're coming from a Windows or even from a Linux background. So I decided to just go with this. Now, if you don't know PowerShell, it doesn't matter. It's perfectly fine. We're really talking more about the practices versus the code. So let's go ahead and take a look at some tips here. The first tip is going to be ensure the code is in source control. It's obviously number one. We want to make sure that any code that we write is never stored locally, not in OneDrive, not on your desktop, in your documents, nothing. We also want to make sure that we have proper variable names. So for example, if somebody's using your code and you make a variable name like T, nobody knows what T means. So let's make sure that we use those variables that we need to use, specifically the naming convention. Next, we have proper error handling. There's nothing worse in an application or any piece of software or any script than poor error handling. Because remember, you're not the only one using this code. So if somebody else ends up using this, you want to make sure that they know what's happening in the code, especially if an error occurs. Next, you want to make sure that the code is reusable. So what that means is you want to use it like a program. You want somebody to be able to take it and run it like a program. Next, you want to ensure that code is properly documented. Then finally, you want to make sure that you're following all language best practices. We're going to go through all of this in this video right now. Let's jump in. So the first thing is we're going to look at old.ps1. So what does old.ps1 do? Well, it's using the Azure CLI, and the Azure CLI, what this is doing is it's saying it's going to create a resource group. Now this resource group is going to be located in East US, and then in East US, there's going to be a name of that resource group, and it's going to be called YouTube 92. So here's a few things that are wrong with this. First, it's not really reusable, and the reason why is because there's no variables. We're hard coding East US and the name of the resource group YouTube 92 in here. So because of that, nobody can go and take this program or this script and use it anywhere else. It has to be used with these parameters. Now the next thing is best practices. So should the code look like this, or should we maybe go like this, for example? Does it look a little bit cleaner for people? Maybe, or maybe it looks a little bit better like this. The other thing too is this code isn't documented. If we go back to the tips right here, we can see that we need to make sure that it's documented. We need to make sure it's reusable. Next thing is there's no variables at all. There's no error handling. There's nothing here. So the thing is like this is all right for just a one-off, but if you want to be able to use this again and again, or you want to be able to have other people on your team create different resource groups with a script or a little piece of code, this isn't going to work. So with that, let's go ahead and actually start creating the new version. So for the new version, we want to ensure that this code is reusable. For that, we're going to create a function. So we're going to say function, and we're going to say new resource group. Now I am leaving something out here called commandlet binding, and there's a purpose for that. We're going to see that when we get to the linting portion of this. So now under parameters, we want to ensure that we have a few different parameters, and they're both going to be strings, East US and the resource group name, or I'm sorry, the location and the resource group name. So we're going to say string here. We're going to say location, put another string. We'll say resource group name. Now, these are mandatory, and we want to ensure that people are passing this in. You need a location and you need a resource group name to create the resource group name. So what we're going to do is we're going to make these mandatory. We're going to do the same thing right here. We're going to say parameter mandatory. And again, if this code looks like gibberish to you, don't worry about it. It's not about the code right now. It's about following those development best practices when you're moving from just a one line or a scripting to more of a development scenario. So we have two variables here that are parameters. We're passing them in as arguments, and we're ensuring that those arguments must be mandatory. So all of this code here is good to go. Now what we need to do is we need to actually put in the code that we want to do. So if we go back here, we can simply copy this, go back, paste this in here to the body. Now, the one thing that we do want to change is we want to put in these arguments. So we have location, and then we also have resource group name. So what this is going to do is this is going to allow us to use those arguments with the code running. Now what we can do is if we want to clean it up, make it look a little bit better, we can go ahead and do just like that. So now this code is a little bit more condensed. It's not, long ways essentially, it's not across, it's more just packed in one by one underneath each other. So now that we have that, we are on the right track, but the thing is we don't have any error handling. So let's go ahead and we're going to create that. We're going to do some try catch blocks. And then in the try, what we're going to do is we're going to put in the body of the code, the core code here that we want to run. So what do we want to actually catch? Well, this is actually a very large topic in the development community where like, how do you want your error handling to be set up? So typically when you are running a program, you want your error handling specifically in the catch blocks. Sometimes you'll see those as accept blocks, anything in that error handling. You want to ensure that you're capturing specific errors. So for example, let's say that you're running a program and that program is for like some sort of web server, you're creating some sort of web API, and there's some sort of HTTP error where you're getting maybe a 500 instead of a 200. Well, in that case, you could catch the error here. The other way to do it is to catch all of the errors at the same time. Is it a best practice? I would consider it a best practice depending on the code that you're running. So for something like this, catching all of the errors at the same time, it's not a big deal. It's perfectly fine. You're just creating a resource group. But for something like a web API, you might want to catch certain errors in certain places. So we're going to catch all of the errors here. We're going to use PS commandlet with the throw terminating error class. And then in this class, to literally catch every single error, we're going to do $_. This means essentially catch everything in the pipeline, catch everything that's coming towards us that's going to be caught in those errors. So now we have some pretty good code set up here. We have reusable code, we have variables. The variable names make sense. We know what location and resource group means, or resource group name. We know the parameters are mandatory, so those arguments that are being passed in must be used. And then we have our try and our catch blocks, and we condensed this code here a little bit so it wasn't long ways. Instead, it's just simply blocked in for us. So with that, we're pretty much good to go here. But to actually ensure that we are absolutely good to go, we need to make sure that we're following language best practices. And to do that, we're going to be using something called PS Script Analyzer. And if you haven't heard of PS Script Analyzer, it's essentially a linter. A linter goes through and it ensures that your code is following best practices. So let's go ahead and do that. We're going to type invoke. Is it Script Analyzer? Yep. And then we're going to go to new PS1. Now, as we can see, we have two things here. One, we have on line 19 has a trailing white space. So let's go ahead and take a look at that. Now you see here why it's saying that there's actually this white space here. So I'm just going to backspace here. I'm going to save that. I'm going to clear, and then I'm going to run the script analyzer again. Now, as we can see on line 17, we see the same thing. We have that trailing white space here. So we're going to go back. We're just going to do, depends on the keyboard, but I did Command Shift F, and that's going to format our code for us. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to run this again. Now, here's the thing about linters. Sometimes you have to ignore what's happening in linters. And I know it's, then what's the point, Mike? so sometimes with linters, they're a little bit aggressive. So in this case, we see on line 17 here that there's a trailing white space. Well, yeah, there is this trailing white space here, but the thing is that this is the way that PowerShell code should be formatted. So we could pretty much ignore that for the most part. The next thing that you're going to see here is, this is the one that I wanted to get to and why I left out the commandlet binding. We see function new resource group has a verb that could change the system state. Therefore, the function has to support should process, which is great. So for example, come up here, we're going to type in commandlet binding. And then in our commandlet binding, we're going to say support should process. We'll put a true here. So now the function new resource group supports should process. So with that saved, let's go ahead and run this. And we can see now that new resource group has should process attribute, but does not does not call should process should continue. So with that, now we know that we can actually put this into our code if we want to. And to do that, right on top of the try block, we'll do if ps commandlet should process. Oops, sorry, I forgot the $sign here. PS commandlet should process, and we'll put in, for example, location. So what this is saying is, if the function should process the location parameter, we're going to run this code. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to copy the try catch. I'm going to, paste that in here. All right. So now we can see that we do have a few errors here, missing after in. Oops, sorry. That was my bad. Forgot to put, yep, there we go. Perfect. All right. So yeah, I just forgot to put parentheses here. All right. So now we have the should process. If I clear the screen here and I run this again, boom. So as we can see, this error has now gone away. And it wasn't really an error. It was more of like a warning. It's, again, with linters, like, it's good to follow the best practice. But at the same time, for example, we see things like the trailing white space. This is the way that PowerShell code should be formatted, essentially. So like we could even clean this up here and format it a bit. And we're going to have some trailing white spaces, which again is fine. This is a properly formatted PowerShell script. Again, if I type Command-Shift-F on my keyboard, that's going to auto format it for us if you have the PowerShell VS Code extension. If you don't, you could just simply look it up here and install it right from the marketplace. So now we ran our linting, our PS script analyzer, and that's all good to go. Now what we want to do is we want to run a test. So I already wrote this test up, and if you haven't ever seen a test like this, this is a testing framework for PowerShell called Pester. Now Pester is the de facto standard, so definitely check it out. Let's go ahead and just go through this really quick. So first you have the describe block, and the describe block essentially means, all right, this is what the code should look like. So we have our location and our name variables, and I put in East US and YouTube 92 for those values. And then what the code on line 5 is saying is there's a it block, and this it block is essentially saying that the name should be YouTube 92. And then we have the variable for name, and then we pass in should be YouTube 92. Same thing for the location on line 9. The location should be East US, and then we have the location variable where it's passing in should be East US. So let's go ahead and actually run this. Invoke Pester, and then we'll run it on test.ps1. And we can see here that we have 2 tests that completed successfully and both have passed. So now we have a little bit of unit tests going on. We know that these are the resource names that should be being passed in. So we're good to go there. And now we are finally able to run our PowerShell code. So I'm going to highlight this. I'm going to run selection here. So now our function is in memory. So I'm going to type in new resource group. Location is going to be East US, and what is it? Resource group name is going to be YouTube 92. I'm going to run this code. And as we can see, our code completed successfully and our resource group has been created. And then finally, we can go ahead and we can add this to source control. So I'm going to go here to Git. We have a few different changes. I'm going to commit this code, save all and commit, ensure that we want to stage it. New code for part 4, save that, and push that code up. Now we are officially ready to go. And that's how you can get started scripting like a developer with PowerShell or with any other language, because remember, we were really more focused on the tips. So let's go ahead and we're going to go back to the tips again. Tips, so we want to ensure that we're in source control. We want to ensure that we have proper variable names, error handling, make sure the code is reusable, make sure the code is properly documented, and make sure that you are following best practices. So with that, thank you so much for watching. Really appreciate it, and we'll see you again on part 5.